So this session is supposed to be about two of our two multilingual filters, the XLS one and the XML one. So this is the plan, that first we do the very basics of multilingual XL import, then a couple of little tricks, then a bit of XML. XL basics. So where we start from is that we have such a translatable, where we have, so this is the actual source text, which has to be translated into 5 different languages, but we also have some ID for the rows, some comments for some of the rows, and we also have a length restriction. When I was preparing for this, at the end I realized that it's kind of funny that I'm putting length restrictions under basics. But this is, I suppose, because this format is very, very popular with software developers. So, and for those, in those cases, the length restriction is kind of a thing that happens often. So there, it's kind of a basic thing. So this is how length restriction became to be part of the basics half and not the advanced half. But anyways, this is the source text, and the way we set up a filter. This is really nothing special. The thing I wanted to highlight is that the name of the filter that everyone refers to as multilingual XL filter, its name is multilingual delimited text filter for, let's say, historical reasons. But this is how you set it up. So the interesting part is the columns tab within the filter configuration, and we are going to define the columns down here. Or more exactly, this is where we see how we define the columns. So there are various things you can set up in this section for each column. But for this setup that we had here, column A is context, you know, the ID kind of context, also very popular in software development. For B, we have comment. For C, we have length limit for D and all the languages. We could even set it up different for each language. In D, we have the source text, and in each of the columns, we have the translation for these various languages. And what happens if we import it? Import with options. If you want to use a multilingual filter, you always need to go through import with options, because the default import configuration is always the simple, the bilingual, the monolingual, there is only one target language for each and every file format. So you, you definitely have to go through import with options, and then you can select the multilingual delimited text filter, actually the filter configuration that you have set up. And if you use this, oops, yeah, and this is how you import it. Now, the file that I showed earlier, this only has the source. Another thing why this format is fairly popular is that it can also easily handle cases where in some of the cells you already have translations. And this is what I have here as an example. Here, almost all the languages are already finished. Only the Italian isn't. And the reason is because for some reason, I couldn't find the end of this, this nursery rhyme in Italian. So, so it is only in Italian that some more translation needs to be done, but perhaps the other languages still need to review the existing translations. And if we import this thing with the exact same filter configuration that we have set up here, then this is what we get. There is a separate file for each language. So that is exactly the same as always. One thing that is a little different is that under here in preview, translators can see the translations that were already present for the other languages. And this is something that is often very useful, both in the case where two languages are fairly close to each other, but also when you need some kind of a context or an explanation. Then it can also help you if you know how previous already accepted translations were done, what that text meant for the German translator can help the Hungarian translator too. And as you see, we have the source limit imported, that it already says that, the maximum for the translation must be 19. And the comment has also been imported as a comment. So this was this fairly simple case, and a couple of nice tricks. One row can easily contain multiple source segments, if that is the need. So the example I have here is when you have a short title and a long title for a book, and you want both to be translated. I mean, if this is how the source text looks, you don't have to go ahead. Of course, you could magic this in Excel and then cut them and copy them and then paste it and then cut back when after you did it, but you don't need to. You can set it up like this, that you set both A and B as source text, and then you can say that C is a translation for column A and D is a translation for column B. And of course, if you had to translate this for 5 further languages, then you can set up 10 further columns and be very happy with it. So this is if you import it. This is how it looks. Maybe this, yeah. So these two just become completely separate segments with completely separate places to translate. Oh, so you can have a condition, meaning if there is a column in your Excel file that contains some kind of an information, whether something should be translated or not. I mean, by you. My example here has a status, but of course, it could be a lot of other things. So we can also handle this. So if we wanna change things based on column B is a condition. Then what we need to do is set it as a condition, whether it relates to all columns or not. And we can say what it wants to find here so that it should not be imported. Pretty much which are the non-translatable rows. Please note that it's the order of the columns, it really doesn't matter. It can be any crazy order the creator of the file has thought it up. You have to pay attention when you set up the filter configuration, but there is no MemoQ is not looking for anything logical. It is, I mean, it can be more helpful for a human to have these in a logical order, but MemoQ really doesn't care as long as you have set it up in the proper way. So if you set it up like this, then let me magnify this again, like this. So yeah, so even though in my kind of source file, the statuses and the existence of translations, I mixed them up on purpose. But what happened here is that only the rows where the status was new, only those were imported, absolutely regardless of whether they had a translation or not. So that didn't matter. What mattered was that the rows where we have translated in column B, those were skipped. And one more thing, cheating. The multilingual Excel tool Excel filter is a tiny bit more intelligent than the simple Excel filter. And what the simple Excel filter does is that it just replaces the source text with their translations. So if you want these features that are present for the multilingual filter, but you still need to overwrite the source text, then you can use the in-place translation setup. So we are once again, so it's the same file, it's just that this time the client doesn't want the translations to be in separate columns. They want to have back one single language translation where the translation went to column D, or they want to have 20 separate files for 20 separate languages. And in this case, we don't change anything. So we leave everything as it used to be in the first 3 columns. And what we do is we use in-place translation, which pretty much means that when the translation is done, it will go to column D, just as with the regular Excel filter. So this is how it looks in MemoQ. We don't have the other languages. It's only the whatever it is now, French, that we have. Yeah, if we have several languages, Maria asked, if we have several languages that are imported, do we get several target Excel files or we have it all in one? Yes, you do have in all in one, as Estella answered. Yeah, when all translations are ready, you select all and hit export. That's the truth. And yes, you can have kind of split up, a kind of a split up version too. Blurred. Okay, so XML, multilingual XML. So this is how a nice multilingual XML file looks like. You have these entries, and below the entry nodes, you have it's the same thing that I'm using for each and every of the samples. So the same IDs, some comments, some length restrictions, and we have the English source. And someone was very conscious, and they added all the other nodes for all the other languages, except they forgot Hungarian from here, but let's pretend it's there, okay? So this is the nice XML. We have all the nodes in the same order, all are there. They can be empty like these, but they are there, and they are in the same order for each and every language and comment and everything. In this case, we can set up the import rules. So we are editing a multilingual XML filter configuration, and we are on the import rules tab, where this thing just lists kind of in shorthand what we have, and we click on edit import rules. And we come to this, I would say, slightly ominous dialogue. So what do we have here? On the left, we have a preview. We have a preview if and only if we have given a reference file to the filter. Reference file is added on the encoding and reference files tab. So if we have added a reference file, which I did, it's just the same one that I showed. So it's where is it? It's this one. So this is the one. Now this is, yeah, a one that is already paired is what I added as a reference file. But it really helps a lot if you do. So when you click on any row, MemoQ tries to help you with adding the XPath for the selected row on this top row. What I want to tell you is don't listen to it, okay? MemoQ is trying to be helpful, but in this case, it is not. What this XPath here, it is defining this row. I think I clicked on this one, the premier petit cochon. It is defining that row absolutely exactly. But in most of the cases, we just don't need it. Most of the cases, wherever we see an FR tag, whatever is below it should be the translation. And wherever we see an ID tag, whatever is below it is the context ID. So to be honest, in all the files I have met, it was perfectly enough to define these things, these tags, these nodes with a double backslash, meaning pretty much meaning wherever you find it, wherever you find such a tag, whatever is its children, take it as a context, take it as a length restriction. So this way we can really get rid of this, which says whenever you find the first occurrence of the numbers tag and below it the first occurrence of the entry tag and below it the first, so no, we don't need that. And when we set it up, we also see these colors in the preview of the reference file. What the colors mean is under here, but it pretty much tells us what it regards to be what. And you have to create a separate rule for each and every one of your languages. And with XML, the multilingual XML filter is a fairly pesky one. So it really insists on having everything set properly. There is no wiggle room with the multilingual XML filter. You have to have the same languages, everything set up. You have to have, if in one of the languages you say there is a comment, then there has to be a comment for each and every one of the languages, and it has to be there under each and every whatever it is now entry. So if MemoQ doesn't find it under any of those, it throws a tantrum, which I'm going to show you instantly.
This is more for a general follow-up later. The multilingual XML filter is using XPath to indicate translatables / context or comments. Any plans to modernize the normal single language XML filter to at least the same functionality? It's otherwise rather convoluted and has certain limitations.
Yeah, I understand it. Actually, to be honest, I mean, XPath is I would say it's about the same level of regexes, or maybe 1 or 2 levels above it. Okay, so to actually answer it, there are no actual plans to do that. If you could kindly send me but not this request, the reasons, the cases where you would use it. Okay, so what I would need to consider it with this one and with each and every feature request. With each and every feature request, what I need to consider something is the reasons, the problems that you face when you would use that feature. So yeah, and Carlotta, there is no current filter for multilingual JSON files, and I don't see it coming anytime soon, and exactly because of the reason, because there is no XPath for JSON, well, not as widespread. The JSON files I saw were very much all around the place in how they were formatted. And actually, there are millions and millions of converters from JSON to XML. So actually converting your JSON to XML and then translating it with an XML filter and then converting it back, that's a fairly easy workaround. Whereas building a separate multilingual JSON filter would, I mean, that would be about, so then we do not develop anything else within filters for 1 or 2 years, because that would be a huge development, and because it would be just about as complex as the multilingual XML, and probably even more. So I don't see that in the near future. Of course, it really all depends. If half of our users tells us they are translating multilingual JSON files like daily, then of course it is worth it to make their lives easier and create a specific filter for that. Okay, so now we have a messy XML, and here comes actually this is pretty much the last chapter. I wanted to share a trick with you that saved my life once, and I think it is really worth sharing. So XML itself is a very strict standard. So there are a lot of things that are just forbidden in XML. And this is one of the reasons why the MemoQ multilingual XML filter is also very specific on what can happen and what cannot. But real life XML files are often messy. For example, this starts off okay, but in the second entry, we already have French language, which we didn't have in the first one. And in the third entry, we already have a Hungarian translation and a placeholder for Italian, but we are missing these two. Yeah, in the fifth one, we don't have a comment. And what happens if you try to import this into MemoQ, then you get something like this. Missing content notes could not be supplied. Anyway, what it says is that it was not as clean and organized as I want it to. And making this okay, or making this consistent, is of course doable. It is of course doable with regexes in Notepad++ or with some kind of a dedicated tool. But what I found out that it is about 1 million times easier to do it with the wonderful Excel. Because what happens is that basically this is kind of like a table already. And Excel can eat XML files. So that's what we are going to do with it. We are going to import the XML into Excel, just fiddle with it a little bit, and then get a perfect XML. So what we have to do first, it's just a one-time thing. The developer ribbon is a separate ribbon in Excel, which is hidden by default. You can make it appear through options, customize ribbon, and checking developer. It's not a paid add-on or anything. It's just I think it's too geeky, so it's hidden by default. And when we have this ribbon, then we have the import button on it, which wants to import the XML files. So we just go ahead and import this very messy file. And what we get is Excel already organizes it. So Excel doesn't care that the order of comment and length and whatever was not the same. It doesn't care that we had different cases. If you remember, where is it? Yeah. So for some nodes we had these languages, German and French, and for others we had Hungarian and Italian, and the comment was sometimes there, sometimes it wasn't. But Excel just created a well-behaved table from it and organized it. So funnily, actually, we could already get rid of the XML thing and have this translated using the multilingual Excel filter. That is also an option that you are free to do. But if you would still prefer translating an XML filter, then there is only one thing you need to do: fill the empty cells with something. Because if there are empty cells, then some of the tools in the workflow may get a little angry. So if you we are still in Excel. If you search for nothing and matching entire cell contents, and replace that nothing with a character that is for sure not anywhere in your translation, then you end up with the same thing, but we don't have the empty cells anymore. We have these little circles, and we just go and export it from the same developer ribbon. And lo and behold, we have a very, very well behaved, very clean, very nice, perfect XML file, where everything is in the same order. Whenever we didn't have a comment, we have this. Whenever we didn't have the languages, we have the languages in the same order. And so all we have to do now is, in whatever editor this is, we just have to replace the funny character with nothing, and we have the perfect, clean XML file that we would like to work with. So Carlotta is asking, multilingual delimited text filter. When you use the in-place translation function, you lose the multilingual aspect because you cannot choose the target languages. How can you import a multilingual Excel file with different source text for different target languages? It stops behaving like a multilingual filter. Actually, you do use the multilingual aspect, so then you need to import all the files into a separate document. Melanie is asking, can the filter be entirely done via regex instead of XPath? No, it doesn't eat regex, it only eats XPath. But the thing I showed you, the / language code, that's XPath. when I said XPath is a level above regex, it's roughly like that, but it doesn't eat humans either. So if you just Google it and read a bit about it, actually this is how I found. For years I was struggling when I was still a user. For years I was struggling with trying to find the right XPath, and especially remembering the right XPath, because this is the kind of thing that you only use like twice a year, so you keep forgetting it. You keep forgetting what the right XPath was and where the screen share button is. So at last, so this thing, the //fr, that's proper XPath. And as far as I remember, what it means is wherever you find it. And then you don't need that very long expression, which is, to be honest, this is mostly good for it to be stopped up. So yeah. Yeah, both have their own uses, I suppose, regex and XPath, but sometimes one is better than another. Yeah, you are obviously right. This is an XML filter, so you don't need, I mean, if the entry fields that you used here were regex based, then we would have to, in the background, we would have to convert regex to XPath. And all these conversions are well, they are prone to errors. And I mean, it's just so annoying. And if you are using one language that is already obscure enough, then figuring out what is wrong with this regex, and or whether there is something wrong with the regex or the conversion to XPath. No, sorry, XPath. Actually, one thing that is on the radar, not sure if it's going to come soon, but we are already looking into it, is XPath 2. Honestly, so as the source files translators are working with, or translation companies are working with, they are, as far as I can tell, getting weaker and weaker, because translation is getting closer and closer to the creation of these files. So we in the translation industry, we just really need to learn what's up with these, because software developers are not going to learn about translation systems. We have to learn their languages, meaning regexes and XPath and JSON and multilingual JSON and whatever there is. Actually, I just remember, but it just occurred to me whether Excel can import JSON. That would be a funny thing. Expansion packs. Okay, so that's for example. So this is the and you know, I've been a PM/engineer for a good couple of years, and this was often what I did. So when I met some difficult file, I just had a look at it through, can Notepad++ magic it somehow? Can I magic it somehow with regex? Can I magic it somehow through Excel? Can I magic it somehow? Something.